Hey, it's football and other F words. I'm your host, Zach Lyons. You can follow me on Twitter at the Zach Lyons right down here. It's been a while since I've been in the cave. It's a little dirty, as you can tell. I got Ninja Turtles driving drunk up here. Got books up here just tipping over. Haven't been in here in a while. I mean, I come in here maybe to, check some information and do stuff, here and there on the computer. I really don't get in here as often as I used to. Got my grandma's painting. She painted that over there. So I got grandma's painting over there. So there we go. So today is a Titans Ask Me Anything. But more importantly, I feel that we need to start off with the Stoney Keeley Health update. Now, I know people are going to probably be coming in late, but this is why you get in early, right? I mean, if you, the early bird gets the early worm or something like that. And I stopped off to the hospital that Stoney Keeley is currently residing in. I got to meet his mom for the first time. I mean, I've known Stoney for about 5 or 6 years, and I got to meet his mom, Miss Trish. So shout out to Miss Trish if she's listening right now while Stoney's in bed. First thing, I knock on the door because the door was shut. Poke my head in and say, "Hey, little fella, is it a good time?" And he says, "Yeah, sure, come on in." And the first thing out of his mouth besides that is, "You can get a good look at my testicles if you want, everybody else has." So he was willingly going to show me his balls in front of his mom. So I thought that was a sweet offer. I did offer to take a picture. Stoney Keeley, though, is doing good. He's reading football books while he's sitting in bed. All he has are books, a shitty ass ESPN TV where he can't even watch tonight's game. And he's got his Cody Alexander just string of football knowledge books. We sat, we talked, we chatted, we discussed the philosophy of, neutering your young quarterback and the statements he can say and can't say in the media and all that kind of stuff. We talked about the ridiculous claims that this Tennessee Titans offense is anything similar to this Arizona Cardinals offense outside of just, they both run a lot of plays out of shotgun. That's it. We talked a lot about just the lack of direction this entire team has. But we're also going to do an AMA. So the AMA is going to kind of pop in and out between all these conversations that I'm going to have with you guys. Some of the information, conjecture, assumptions, some of the information is stuff that I've heard. I don't know how I'll delineate, but maybe you guys are smart enough to know that when I'm telling you something for sure and looking you dead in the eyes in the camera, you guys pretty much know that what I'm telling you is the truth. And because I've heard a lot these last few days, and oh man, it's just disheartening. But first, wait a minute, a beer, Peroni beer. I don't know if you guys know this or not. Peroni, the way that Europeans filter their beer, it may have a lot of carbs, but still one of some of the healthiest beer out there. All these Peronis, Heinekens, and all this kind of stuff because of the filtration process. So you got carbs and calories and stuff like that, but the water's kind of shit here. The filtration process kind of diluted, kind of dirty. But over here, this is all clean. This is clean beer. So you don't feel as heavy. Jackson Williams says, not doing this from Stoney's hospital bed is a missed opportunity. It's there's not a lot of room in there. There's people that he shares doors with. You have to be quiet. It just really doesn't do it justice. Now I really wanted to, but it just doesn't make sense. Got Ross Mojo Rojo, producer extraordinaire, in the chat. Got Bustin' Diamond, Joe Blacko, Casey Jones, the usuals. Well, I'm sure we'll have people filter in as time goes on. Let's start with our first AMA. This is from Bustin' Diamond. In here early for once, if we can get this popped up. In here early for once. Prayers up for Stoney. My question for the AMA, how can the Titans be fixed in a Cliff Note version? I know it's a lot. I mean, obviously, you're going to have to start hitting on drafts, right? But I think the quickest way and least risky way, because the whole point of football is trying to mitigate risk wherever you can. So ultimately, I feel like when you're trying to decide what's the best path forward, we talked about it today. It's to let Borgonzi make the decision at coach. Now, does not mean that whoever he chooses is going to work out. It just means that is the lowest way to reduce, or the best way to reduce risk, and the best way to maybe make a decision that gets this going a little bit quicker than normal. Because I don't think necessarily that this is an 0-4 roster, but I know for sure this roster right now is definitely not a shitfest 0-4 roster that it is. And I put a lot of the blame, now that we've had what, 4 games, 17, 21 games of sample size, that sure, many things can be true about last year. Will Levis stinks. We know that from his college tape. The offensive line stinks. We know that from having watched almost the same iteration of the offensive line for 2 straight years. The pass catchers were all right. The run game wasn't as good as Henry. Like, we know that stuff exists. But at the same time, we now know the head coach is in way over his head. And I don't think he has a clue on really how to get himself out of this mess, other than pray to the football gods that Cam Ward turns into, Joe Burrow for the next, 13 games. Like, I don't think he has a clue what to do without his players being elite talents. And that pains me to say, because I was not coming to this conclusion at the end of last year through the last season. I was really buying into this idea that, hey, it's all Will Levis's fault. He sucks. I was really buying into this idea that, hey, it's all the offensive line's fault. They suck. But we're seeing the same offense as we saw last year with a lesser degree of success. And the players are better. The offensive line is better. The pass catchers are better. Tony Pollard is the same, and your quarterback's better. I can only point to one thing. In fact, I feel like the offense itself has been dumbed way down to a point where you're not getting the best out of Cam Ward, because I don't think that he wants to run a system that's adaptable. So we'll dive more into all that stuff, but going into what the original question is to let your football people do football things. And I'm not counting Chad Brinker as a football person anymore. He is president of football operations, but Borgonzi has total control, allegedly, over the front office or the coaching staff in the final 53. He needs to find the coach that he can work with to put together the best roster. Not Brinker, not Burke Nihill, not Kenneth Adams, not Amy Adams-Strunk. They can all have their input. They can all be in the meetings and act like they're asking the really important questions, and they can do the whole, either the pencil over the mouth or the lean in like this. Yeah, 2 fingers. This. Oh, good. But other than that, their input needs to be heard but not listened to. Ultimately, needs to be Borgonzi's decision. So that's just where I'm at on the quickest way. Again, this was going back up, busting diamonds. How can the Titans be fixed? I know it's a lot. Again, you can't guarantee a fix, but that's your best path forward. Okay. Let's see here. Casey Jones. Was Bill Callahan always a myth? Because this O-line doesn't make any sense at all based on his reputation. Yeah, it's interesting. I think Bill Callahan knows his shit. And I think Brian Callahan knows some stuff. Like, I don't think they are lacking in football knowledge. I don't think Bill Callahan is lacking in football experience. I think when you start looking at it, Bill Callahan's been fortunate enough to be around a lot of supreme talent. I think that's why you see Peter Skoronski look mostly good. He's a first rounder. I think you look at J.C. Latham and see there's going to be a lot of potential in that if he could stay healthy. That's a whole nother conversation. If he could stay healthy, then we'd be seeing a really good version of J.C. Latham, and this line would probably be better. But if you're asking him to turn to Dan Moore and to Trent Williams, well, he ain't going to be able to do that. At 4 years into your career, you are what you are. He's been very blessed to be part of the Jets offensive line that already had Nick Mangold and DeBrickashaw Ferguson. He's been very blessed to go to a team that drafted Trent Williams. And he's been able to go to Jedrick Wills and the Cleveland Browns offensive line. And as soon as those injuries started happening, that offensive line started to fall off. I don't know if he's an elevator, but I think that when you give him the best ingredients, he could do something with it. Oh, who is this cook that we just watched on the Guys Grocery Games GOAT list? And she's been on a couple of other things, and she drives me nuts because I don't think she's very good. Oh, what is her name? She didn't win it. She made it a lot further than what she probably should have. God, she has the crazy hair. Not Anne Burrell. What's her name? I'll find it here in a second. Not who won it. Who was competing in it? What a stupid ass Google. Can't you just tell me the person? Anyway, she. Oh, here she is. Here, I'll just throw up her picture. I don't know. Let's see here. How do I share this? This is great. Great for the podcasting. Here we go. Yeah, this one right here. There's Chef Eric Greenspan. They didn't even name her. Stephanie Iser, Justin Warner, and Eric Greenspan. They didn't even name her. I can't remember what her name is either, so I'm not surprised that they did. She can be really good when she has all the ingredients, but when she's trying to come up with creative ways with crappy ingredients, I think she's one of the worst competing chefs on the market. I guess she wins a lot on guys grocery games, but I don't consider that the top of the top. Ultimately, full circle. This is where Stoney needs to be here. Full circle. I feel like that's what Bill Callahan is. You give him great ingredients, boom, one of the best chefs ever. You're gonna have one of the best meals of your life. But when he has shitty ingredients, he struggles with some creativity and some technique. Because this team, even with Bill Callahan, between Jason Hodeling and Bill Callahan, neither of them can teach offensive linemen how to pick up basic stunts. So yeah, I'm a little out. I do think the reputation has probably been a little overblown, but I do think when you're talking about football knowledge, knowing the intricacies of a system, having a really deep running game playbook and stuff like that, I do feel like that's true. I just don't feel like I feel like he's been carried a lot by the players he's been fortunate to coach with or draft. Okay, there we go. I think Oldham here, it right here nails it. Munchak always said the best way to make a bad O line look good was to allow them to run block, and this team just fucking hates running the ball for whatever reason, which is ridiculous. Ridiculous. Let's see here. What does Brinker actually do? He's the president of football operations, so he's everybody's boss. So I guess he could do whatever he want. I know he's still big time into the salary cap, the bookkeeping of contracts, negotiations, putting insurance clauses in some of these contracts so they can get salary cap compensation later. Like he does a lot of, I guess you'd say, accountant stuff and a lot of nerd stuff. But out of that, I mean, I guess he's just president for that point. And I know that really doesn't really help. What is the best offensive strategy Brian Callahan has to form a functional offense? More run game, more play action. Well, I think you nailed both of them on the head. I think one, you can incorporate more run pass options. That kind of can tie into both of these things, Kenneth. At this point, I don't know if he wants to do that. He wants to stay in shotgun. And I think they want to run more, but I don't think they have faith that they can. I don't think they like Tony Pollard for whatever reason. I mean, that's just conjecture right there. The way they treat him, even though he's leaving it all out in the field every snap is ridiculous. But I thought we would see more runs heading into this game with the Texans because that's how you also mitigate a really good pass rush. And they were finding effective lanes and a lot of yards on these runs, and then they just up and abandon it. Um, I think that they just have to not be what they want to be. Like Callahan has to come to grips that this ain't going to be the Bengals offense. And in fact, the Bengals offense is terrible anyway. Now, it's good when Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and everybody's healthy. But since 2022, since the year of the Super Bowl, they've been dead last in explosive plays. The Bengals have. Not the Titans, mind you. The Bengals. So, which is an insane stat, by the way. A little beer break. So yes, more run game leads team leaning into the run game, which they say every fucking week, every press conference. We need to lean into the run game, and then they never do because they're full of shit. So lean into the run game, lean into play action, and lean into the RPOs because that's what your quarterback wants. And the fact that he said, because this sets me off on another tangent. Speaking of things that they say but they never do, the fact he doesn't know, and he doesn't really say he doesn't know, but when you hear his answer about the RPOs that was asked on Wednesday, right? He asks, he says that, well, defenses now can really defend them very well. I mean, that hasn't stopped other teams. So that leads me to believe that I don't know what he's watching on film to think that RPOs are utterly useless enough to not run them at a high rate, despite what your franchise quarterback wants. And B, I kind of wonder that. What are you doing? Got a dog eating something. Hold on. What are you doing? Are you eating string? Oh, fucking Huxley eating string. And two, do you even know how to do RPOs? Like, I mean, design them, implement them, install them, call them. Because let's think about it. I mean, Joe Burrow never did a lot of RPOs. We know Peyton Manning, Matt Stafford, they weren't like RPO crazy back in the days. Same with Derek Carr. Makes you wonder if they even know how to do it. Like, it makes you wonder, do they even know how to utilize it, I guess? Because I'm sure they know how to design it. I'm sure they know how to install it. Do they know how to teach it? Do they know when to use it? Do they even want to? Like, even if you do know all that stuff, do you even want to? And that is, I think, the thing right here is like the best offensive strategy for Brian Callens is actually do the stuff that works. Use motion on pass plays at a higher rate. You can never get enough motion. That helps your quarterback see the field. Use RPOs because what did Cam Ward? Cam Ward said RPOs help with seeing space and seeing leverage. He loves them. He used to run them all the time. That sure would help seeing space, seeing leverage. RPOs help with all that. You lean into the run game. A run game is a rookie quarterback's best friends, and you don't even want him to even hang out with his best friend. It's not even that you don't even like his best friends. You don't even want him hanging out. You want your son to only hang out with good little girls and guys that can only shoot 3-pointers. Because it goes back as much as many people goes back to what Rand Carthon said. Do y'all remember when Rand Carthon said the Golden State analogy thing? Because I've been thinking about that a lot lately, watching this Arizona Cardinals team. He said, at a certain point, you can't be shooting 3-pointers all the time. He said that with Mike Vrabel, opening press conference, and everybody made fun of him, right? Everybody made fun of him. And I said, I think there's something to this. And the more I've been thinking about it and watching this Arizona Cardinals team, he was 100% right. Because right now we're watching an offense that is deemed modern by the architect of it, only want to shoot 3-pointers. And they only want to go down low at the worst possible time. And so I look at it and I go, yeah, that is what he meant. Is that you can't be shooting three-pointers all the time. And that's what this Tennessee Titans team is trying to do. And I think that's why that there was a talk that I thought Dan Quinn was going to get hired at one point. And I think that's why someone was pushing for Dan Quinn, but they went this other direction because they felt like they were getting more of the same. But boy, it should have been nice for you to got Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury here. But instead, you got Brian Callahan and Nick Colts only wanting to shoot threes and not wanting to lean in on their post players more to help them out underneath. And that's the problem. That is the problem with this team. They are in shotgun, I think, over 80% of the time. They're in 11 personnel over 80% of the time. They rarely use play action. They rarely lean in on the run. And they're sending long developing routes. And when they do call play action, it either works, like the Elegant Manor, where they use motion and play action, that never went really back to both those combinations ever again. Or B, they use it twice, and then they have these long developing routes. And when the play action part where the fake is done, Cam Ward has no outlets to go to because the design is poor. And again, it goes back to, is it poor because they don't know how to do it? I don't really believe that. I think it's just they don't want to do it. And so they don't practice it very often. So to me, this roster could be more competitive than what it is. I thought this was a 6-win team. That has not changed. Well, yes, it has. But what I'm saying is my expectations for this team is now lower. But when I look at it, I go, I didn't expect a super fantastic team, but I expected a team that could score points. The roster is built to score points. They built it getting a bunch of young, fast pass catchers. They built it helping out the offensive line and got a franchise quarterback. Because that hasn't changed. While Cam Ward has regressed due to likely bad coaching, he's been good. No doubt about it that he has been good. Well, let me rephrase that. He's been good at times, but you see the glimpses that make him a franchise quarterback. That would be a better way to put that. So to me, it just all boils down to you got to do stuff that they don't want to do. And that's what Brian Callahan's path to success is, that because he says they are like the Arizona team. A lot of similarities. The only real similarity is that they were both run a lot of shotgun. Because the Cardinals run 11 personnel about 57% of the time, run 13 personnel about 13% of the time, and 12 personnel roughly about 29% of the time. And they do a lot out of it. Now, they do a lot of shotgun, but they do a lot out of it. They can run. They have 3 tight ends. They have 12 tight ends, or 2 tight ends, and they run pass quarterback design runs. They're a modern offense, right? They use the run to set up the pass. They use different looks. So to me, I look at it and I go, that's a modern offense. It's not an offense that just lines up as shotgun limb personnel, shoots threes. It's an offense that attacks you in a myriad of different ways. I think Oklahoma City Thunder was a great example of that, right? They could beat you in multiple different ways. The Pacers were kind of like that too. We saw that in the NBA Finals. Can't believe I'm using a lot of NBA references tonight. But we saw what multiplicity and being able to do multiple things from an offensive, defensive front allows your offense to do. And I think that's what they need to be doing, but they can't do it because they just don't want to. So to me, if you're looking for a very modern offense, it's the Arizona Cardinals. Now, is it like super innovative, like constantly coming up with crazy plays and all this? No. But it works within itself. It's adaptable, it's multiple, and it's successful in certain situations. I mean, it's not 100% successful, but it's a lot more successful than yours, which is not multiple, not adaptable, and the same old shit every freaking week. Find you someone, if you're still looking for a significant other, find you someone that loves you as much as Brian Callen, this offense loves dagger plays that are just not working because they fucking love it. They love it. They love to run deep developing, long developing routes that don't work and have no outlets for their young quarterback. Again, Titans Ask Me Anything. If you're just joining in, you can put anything in the chat. I'll read it. We'll also, just for the maybe a little Stoney Keeley Health update, just real quick. For those that may have missed the beginning of the part of the show, Stoney's doing well, should be back in time for Sunday for Titans Talk Back. He's still in the hospital, but they should be releasing him soon. All right. If you don't think, like, Cam Ward's been a rookie quarterback, but I think he has shown enough that if you think he's a bust already, then you just don't know ball at this point. Which brings me to just real quick. I just really want to touch on it just real quick because it really irks me. This whole the we ask comment and all that kind of stuff. Um, they need more players like Cam. Now you don't have to say we asked. I mean, if he said we bad, who gives a shit? But I don't think there's any difference between ass, bad, shit, terrible, trash, incompetent, loser. Like, I mean, that's what they are. It's what they show it each and every week. So I'm not. But the whole point of what he was saying is that first off, we are right. Like, I mean, I am. The team is. The special teams, defensive, everything. We're not playing together. We're not playing well. We got to lock in. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think to use the words growing up and words carry weight, I think is just a little much, a little performative. You know what they should have done? And goes from Brian Callahan, Cody Barton, Jeffrey Simmons, who, as I've reflected, I don't really have too many bad comments to say about Jeffrey Simmons, even though instead of preaching, we're close, we're so close, he should be saying, you know what? Side with Cam Ward. We have not played like a unit. We have not played complementary football. We do have to lock in because we are tired of losing. That's what everybody should have said. Instead, because they're all so perennially online, constantly online, they're, hey, quit biting that box. God damn, Havana. But instead of doing the smart thing and backing their quarterback, albeit a different way, and listen, if you have problems with what he said, handle it like men. Don't tell people that you're talking to them. But instead of doing that, they kind of just showed what they are. They're kind of pansies. And I don't think, and when I say that, I mean, I think they've taken on the identity of their head coach in a sense of the reason why they're losing is because they're scared of anything with fire, with passion. And I just don't get it. I mean, I appreciate everything that Brian Callahan has done, but to me, from overly aggressive Rabel to milquetoast Brian Callahan, there needed to be an in between. And I appreciate all the details that he gives as a fellow nerd, but the lack of passion and motivation I see. Remember over the summer when everybody said it was low tempo practices and all that? Well, this is a low tempo attitude to not just lean in to what your franchise quarterback said. Lean into it, be it, embrace it, and say, hey, he's right. But we're going to rally around that and we're going to prove people wrong. That is true leadership. True leadership, that's what true leadership looks like. You've been dealt a bad hand, and technically, because I don't really think it was that bad of a hand to be dealt with what Cam Ward said. But you need to look at it and you need to say, hey, he's right. He's right. And that's how you rally around a locker room around an idea. Instead, this is a directionless franchise that has no offensive identity, has no team identity. It has no idea what it wants to be offensively from an offensive philosophy standpoint. And I still don't know what this culture and identity is supposed to be. And nobody can really answer it because I know what they kind of want to be, but not what that's not what they are. So again, that comes down to coaching. And I think this team, by and large, has really sunk so low. And a lot of these guys have been in the NFL for forever and been on this team for the last few years. It's so low that they're drowning in quicksand. And here's Cam Ward trying to offer them a lifeline where, hey, I'm going to pull you out. We are going to pull each other out. I'm holding myself accountable. I'm holding the team accountable. I'm holding the staff accountable. We are going to pull each other out, and it's going to be us against the world. We're going to prove everybody wrong. They basically looked at the rope, let it go, and just said, I'll just die in misery. Because that's what it really is. It is just a basic misunderstanding of how to get things motivated. Let's see. Chris Fleming's right. Cam will give us an identity eventually with a different coach. Because I don't know if you guys saw it today, but Jamar Chase and Mike McCarthy both came out talking about the idea of personality, the idea of anger fueling a team because it shows you that someone cares. Cam cares. He cares that they're not winning games. I know that nobody wants to lose, but show us some fucking fight. Show us something. Show us that you're angry and you're mad and that's sad and dejected. Show us something. Because to me, I don't know. I get why. I just don't get, like, people are like, well, he said ass. We're ass. And they're making shirts. Oh, goodness, guys. They're making 150 shirts and they all sold out. What are they going to do? That's 150 divided by what? Because everybody's worried about that they're going to show up in the stadium. Let's see. 150 divided by, I know they could at least hold 69,000 in the stadium. 0.02% of the fan base that could come to your stadium bought shirts. 0.02. But hey, let's worry about that. Let's worry that the national media is playing that clip, that very true clip. Let's worry about that. Let's not worry about the product on the field. Let's not worry that we're kind of undermining our quarterback and what he says. That's what I'm saying. Like, he said it to the media. So what? Big whoop. And that goes for the players. That goes for the coaches. That goes for the front office. Big fucking whoop. And he was right. And this front office, this coaching staff, and oftentimes these players are so focused on the wrong thing. And Cam Ward is so focused on the right thing, being competitive, making himself better, making the team better. He wants to win. But everybody else is like, oh, man, the optics. Ooh, those optics are bad. He said ass. Ooh, it went viral, even though everybody's applauding his comments. Because he's not making you guys the joke. You guys are already the joke. He's tired of the joke. He wants the joke to end. So, like, give me a fucking break. Okay. Logan Gray says 150 of the 80 Titans fans that will be there. There you go. I love that math. Let's see here. Let's see, where y'all want to go? Let's see. I've seen a few people ask me who I want as head coach. And I really lean to that this team needs a proven coach. I'm not, going crazy over the idea of Mike McCarthy, but there's going to be other people I have above him. But I think Mike McCarthy's a real one to keep on your radar. I think you could do. I think he probably will end up in my top 4 picks. John Harbaugh or Mike Tomlin. Apparently, people think, and maybe this is early reaction NFL season, way too early. But one of those guys could be gone. Most people would be very surprised to both stay. If one of those guys are gone, I am 100% jumping on either one of them. If it's John Harbaugh, hell, I'll take John Harbaugh and Todd Monken. If it's Mike Tomlin, hey, let's bring back Art Smith with you. I'd be all in because this team needs direction. I like the idea of Lane Kiffin, and Chris Fleming says, in theory, but I don't think this team needs Lane Kiffin right now. You get what I'm saying? Like, if this team was a little bit different in a different stage of its life cycle, I'd be about some Lane Kiffin. But like Brian Flores is a good one. Mike McCarthy. I'd be willing. I bet I could probably talk most people into Matt Nagy again. I think that Mitch Trubisky was a little bit, and that Chicago. I don't know if you guys read about a couple weeks ago. The entirety of the Chicago Bears front office is just fucking loony bin. Like, it's insane. So I would maybe chalk some of that up to that. But like Brian Flores is fine. Mike Tomlin, John Harbaugh, none of those guys are offensive-minded head coaches, but I'd be totally on board with those guys. Because I think that they can instill what this team needs. This team needs a butt whooping, get back in shape, and they need a head coach that can match Cam Ward's energy. Because look at Clark Lee and Diego Pavia. They match each other's energy, and it works. So to me, go over to the other side, and I'm like, well, that could be another reason why this isn't working, because Brian Callahan and Cam Ward are not matching energies here. We're not matching attitudes, desire, competitive spirit. Like, you put Mike Tomlin and Cam Ward together, they'd be cooking. Like John Harbaugh and Cam Ward, oh boy. Like, to me, I kind of look at it like that. Bring me someone that's going to match Cam's energy. And I think you can get that with Brian Flores. Dan Lanning from Oregon. I'd be willing to entertain it. Like, I'm not 100% on board, but I think I'd rather have Dan Lanning than I've kind of slowly start talking myself out of Joe Brady. I know that's a popular name, and I started doing it. But I'm started thinking, well, he's going to want to keep calling plays. This will be the first time he's a head coach. How much of it is Josh Allen? How much of it is Joe Burrow? Like, how much is it that? So I don't know Joe Brady the person. I haven't done a lot of, read a lot of interviews and seen players talk about him and seen other people talk about him. So I'm kind of iffy on him, because last year I was a Brian Callahan guy, but I was an Aaron Glenn guy, Mike McDonald guy. I would have been okay with probably Dan Quinn, been a little bit uninspired, but I've probably been all right with it. But I think the perfect, outside of Harbaugh and Tomlin, obviously, I think I lean towards Mike McCarthy, because I'll tell you what, I'm definitely not going Cliff Kingsbury. And I know that everybody's all in love with Cliff Kingsbury and what he's been able to do with Jane Daniels. And maybe he's learned from his terrible stint in Arizona where everybody hated him. But I kind of lean into a guy that had 3 years of success, 12-5, right? Like, he had 3 years at Dallas, which we know the situation in Dallas is not that great, where he went 12-5. And it was bookended by 2 losing seasons, a 7-win season and a 6-win season to begin his year. Six wins, I believe. May have those mixed. But he's still a good head coach. And so I think that could be the guy right there. So to me, I'd be, the more I keep thinking about Dan Lanning, makes me kind of think, okay, I maybe need to be a little bit more open. I know a lot of people like Jesse Minter, the Chargers defensive coordinator. Not sure I want to go another route where we have nobody with a lack of any kind of head coaching experience. And then Drew Petzig, that ugly offensive coordinator from Arizona. A lot of people would entertain that. But again, never been a head coach. Is that what you really need? We don't know anything about the kind of culture he can install and all that kind of stuff. Like, this team needs culture. This team needs experience. It basically right now just needs a chaperone, pretty much. But they need someone that's done this before. And I think that's kind of what I think. And I think Randy Lugent on Facebook brings this up. I'll throw it up right here. He was like, "Why do I think McCarthy is a clown sack?" I think it's because everybody has convinced us that he's uh way worse than he actually is. Now, does he have his moments? Sure. But he went 12-5, 3 of the 5 seasons. 12-5, 3 seasons straight. With Jerry Jones as a general manager, right? Like, I mean, let's be honest here. So I just I think that the kind of people have kind of convinced us that he's bad when he's not. And so that's kind of the thing I'm leaning into, but that's where I want to go. I don't care if it's offensive, defensive. Don't hire a guy based on who he's been with. Hire a guy on who he is. Coaching quality over coaching continuity, right? Like, at the end of the day, we've seen 10 rookie quarterbacks go through a mid-season coaching firing, get a new coach. Oh, 9 of them got a new coach that wasn't their interim head coach. And 6 of that 9, 7 of the 10 ended up being successful. And I say successful, I mean, the reason that their careers may have derailed at some point wasn't because of a mid-season coaching firing and coaching change. So I do think that Cam Ward, based on everything that he's been through his college career, is going to be fine and weather the storm. Baker Mayfield weathered it. He weathered it. Trevor Lawrence weathered it. Marcus weathered it until he got injuries. So far, Spencer Rattler looks 10 times better with a new coach. Caleb Williams looks better. Derek Carr looked better. Like, all these guys all looked better. You know who didn't look better? Bryce Young's a little iffy about what he can and can't be and what he is. But look at Dwayne Haskins and Blaine Gabbert. Where do you think Cam Ward is? Is Cam Ward more like Dwayne Haskins and Blaine Gabbert? Or is he more like Caleb Williams and Spencer Rattler and Trevor Lawrence and Marcus and Jared Goff? Like, he's that kind of quarterback. You get what I'm saying? Like, he's a talented quarterback. So, yeah. I have to say that, like, I'm not concerned if they end up firing Brian Callahan and put in Bones Fossil and he has to stick and nothing really changes, but then he gets Mike McCarthy, or then he gets Matt Nagy, or then he gets John Harbaugh, or Mike Tomlin. It seems like a good trade-off to me. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but that seems like a good trade-off to me and a recipe for success for this quarterback. Yes, Titan Scott says Titans need a coach that can come in and build a culture. This team lacks any sort of identity. Yeah, that's true too. I don't know. Did they want to bring him back, Stephen Parker? I couldn't remember. He didn't get fired. He just didn't sign his contract, or he wasn't offered a contract. If you guys look in the very corner back here, you can see stuff moving around because my dogs. What are y'all doing? Moving stuff around back there. So I'm not sure. I know he didn't get fired technically, but I don't know if they actually gave him a contract. I do not know what Lanning's salary is, Eric Reed. Yeah, this is an interesting one. I love the way Denard speaks at the podium. He seems like a guy who players would want to play for, except for I question Denard Wilson's ability to communicate effectively to his as a defensive coordinator. Now, if he wanted to be a CEO style head coach, I think that would be the way for him to go. But most of his, they got a lot of miscommunication back there on that back end. You know what I'm saying? Like winning, talking well at the podium is a totally different thing. But I get why most people think that. Let's see here. Is Jim Schwartz a head coach candidate? I'd be willing to entertain that. I'd be willing to do that. I'd have to look at his staff. Uh, if he brings over Tommy Reese or anything, he can't come. No Tommy Reese on this staff. No Tommy Reese. Let's see here. I think that's about it. Let's see here. JCE Latham, of course, is not going to play this week. That was pretty apparent. I don't think that was any change. They got really lucky. And here's why they got lucky. They stayed healthy enough to not have to put him on IR. They did not have to have the roster spot. But here's the issue with playing with fire like they were. Typically got lucky and Tennessee Titans don't mix. What if some injuries happened over the 2 weeks? He missed the Rams game. And let's say injuries happened in the Rams game, then injuries happened in the Colts game. And then they have to put him on IR to get him back. Well, if he was actually ready by week 4, or I guess that'd have been week 5 this week. If he was he would have had to be on the at minimum 2 more games of what he's already missed. If that makes sense. So if they somehow ran across a reason they needed a roster spot, they may have entertained the idea of putting him on IR, which means that he could have been out even longer if they would just went ahead and put him on IR to begin with, which they should have. Because that's what most people do. Poor roster management. They have very suspect roster management with the IR and the medical staff. I mean, if you remember Snead last year, it took about a month and 9 days or a month and 7 days for him to actually go on IR. And then they didn't really know what was happening or communicating it. Khalil Mullins has been really weird. They finally put him on IR after 2 weeks. I don't know if Tyjae Spears is truly ready. Blaine said on our show he had surgery, and he said the same surgery Tua had. So that's tightrope surgery. I heard Easton say that this morning at some point. So if true, I know that he looks good in videos, but I really, really worry about Tyjae Spears right now and how healthy he actually is. I don't know. Y'all got any other questions? If not, I may just end. Let's see here. Why do you think Hooker has fallen off, hoping Winston plays Sunday? Oh, I don't know why Hooker has fallen off, to be honest with you. I haven't really gotten the sense of, again, it feels like communication issues. This really all goes back to coaching for me. Because they're the same players they've always been, but they look so discombobulated. And maybe it's L'Jarius Sneed not practicing enough, right? Like maybe to build that chemistry, you got to practice and you got to play. And maybe they don't have that innate nature of being able to cover each other and communicate with each other properly. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. But yeah, Amani Hooker has not played very well. There's very few people that I think are playing well. Ross asked me the other day, well, who's the best player on the team besides Jeffrey Simmons? I said, Tony Pollard. Besides Tony Pollard, Peter Skronsky. Besides Peter Skronsky. I said, well, if healthy, J.C. Latham. And then he goes, okay, what about the next one? And I go, I guess if healthy, Chavondre Sweat. So we have 2 defensive linemen, 2 offensive linemen, and Tony Pollard are playing the best of the team. And we only seen Tavondre Sweat and JC Latham really a game and a half, one game combined or whatever. So, yeah. Monty Hooker has fallen off. L'Jarius Sneed, he's kind of played a little bit well. Now he's kind of has a couple of miscues here and there, way more miscues than you really want. I think Cody Barton has been underwhelming. I think Cedric Gray's been fine. Not to say Cody Barton's been bad, but he's been very underwhelming. I mean, obviously they got rid of their clearly second best corner. Roger McCreary's been fine. I'd say probably I'd probably throw Roger McCreary up in that next level. Xavier Woods has been playing off his mind, but he has so many missed tackles. It's like it erases how good he's playing. But yeah, I mean, the edge group sucks. The other offensive linemen suck. The tight ends stink. I know everybody's all in love with Gunnar Helm because he can catch a pass, but he can't do anything else. You know what I'm saying? And Cam Ward, it's like he's playing with one hand tied behind his back. It feels like he looks so uncomfortable in this style of offense that it is maddening to know that all they did all offseason was talk about how we're going to incorporate stuff from Miami into the playbook, and they fucking don't. In fact, it's gotten so bad that while he is slow as fuck, I think Xavier Restrepo would be better served to be on this active roster than Tyler Lockett Tyler Lockett. Like, bring him up at this point because I think he has more dog in him than anybody else. Question. First, let's go back up here. Any chance AJ Brown comes back? Probably not. Let's say 0.01% chance. From Eric Reed. Question, is there anyone in the draft that if the Titans end up with number one pick, they cannot afford to pass up generational talent and all that? I don't think so. Jordan Tyson and Reuben Bain are great, but people are going to be trading up for quarterbacks. So no, nobody I would be willing not to get a bounty of draft picks. Forrest Tucker says, it's easy to look back, and I don't think it's on Cam because his situation is bad, but don't you think we would have been better off going with a veteran quarterback and getting Carter along with those picks? I was a Sam Darnold guy, and everybody yelled at me for even suggesting, but I am a big proponent, okay? I am a huge proponent of if you believe this is your guy as a front office, go get him. And so I would have to say that I err on the philosophy of if you feel this is a franchise quarterback for the long haul, you have to get him because you don't know when that opportunity will come back around again. So would this team probably be better right now with what you're saying? Sure. But when's the other quarterback coming? Because, I mean, I don't think Sam Darnold, we'll see how long Sam Darnold's renaissance continues, but if he continues to flame out and win big moments in playoff games, then you just don't have that kind of situation. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to find your young franchise quarterback that can make plays off script. So no, I think they're still better off long term with Cam Ward. Short term, they would have been better off with Sam Darnold and doing the trade. Any optimism about the new tackle from the Packers? No, he's a fake person. Do not believe in his name. Was it Brantley or something like that? Like, no, I'm not worried about him. Zach, did you get a chance to see Tom Brady on Colin Coward's show about quarterback development in the league? I did twice. I don't feel like it's the same clip, but he's talked about it twice. And I do fully agree. It would have been nice. Because you saw it work with Jackson Dart. You've seen it work with Bryce Young when he set the bench. That it sure would have been nice if they had anybody other than Brandon Allen. Because Blaine talked about the more that we talked about before Will Levis's injury, the more he said this. At first, I looked at him like he was crazy. But the more he said it, I was like, okay, no, he's on to something. Would have been nice. And everybody would have thought it would have been insane. But wouldn't it have been nice through the first 4 weeks if you would have thrown Will Levis out there to take all those hits and take all those pressures while Cam Ward is learning, adjusting, seeing on the sidelines. Like, it would just been nice. It's not a have to, because quarterback development isn't linear, but sure would have been nice to not have to throw Cam Ward out to the wolves and all that kind of stuff. And again, I mean, it would have been crazy. People would have hated it, but I think Blaine was kind of onto something. But instead, they kept Brandon Allen. Dixie said, "Where is Stoney, by the way? Still recovering from hernia. He is in the hospital. He should be out in time for Titans Talk Back. Hopefully so, because Kevin Dyson's out of town, and I would hate to do a show by myself to talk about this team. I would hate it. Oh my God, it'd be terrible. Let's see. Do you think Bill C, offensive line blocking scheme, marries well with Brian's scheme? Would we be talking about this more if they weren't related? We've talked about it on Cover 2. Talked a little bit about it on Titans Talk Back. I think we talked about it on Football Never Efforts too. So I've talked a lot about it. No, I don't think it marries very well. I don't think anything marries very well with Brian Callahan's scheme right now, because I think it's not working. And I think any scheme that can't be adaptable or adaptive is a scheme that is being ran with one arm tied behind its back. It may be actually hog-tied at this point. No, I'm not going to Vegas next week for the Raiders game. But like Ed Henry says, would we be talking about this more if they weren't related? I mean, I guess who's the we? I mean, there are some people that are too afraid to speak out against this staff and this regime, or some people that aren't football savvy enough to understand that they don't marry together. So I guess I'm part of 3 shows that can do both. So I don't know. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but fuck it. I mean, we don't shy away from anything. We never have on this podcast. Don't do it on Cover 2. Not afraid to ask the tough questions. Not afraid to talk football X's and O's. So yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. Maybe you're not hearing enough about, but maybe you need to tune into the right shows more often. Because I know, Ed Henry, that did you call the other day, Ed, to the Cover 2? Was that you, Ed, that called from New Jersey? So you don't believe that they are right there, like Jeff Simmons and Cam says? No, absolutely not. Did Cam say that too? I didn't. If he did say that, I didn't. I didn't notice it. But no, no, they're not close. I mean, close to what? I guess. Are they close to being a team that doesn't look like utter trash? Yeah, if they got rid of this coach. Are they a team that right now looks close to rattling off 6 wins? No. Like, I think that's a company line that's being fed by the coaching staff to them, and I get it. That can be the message, right? The message can be, "Hey, we're close." You want that. You want that message. You want them to be thinking positively, but you also need to be saying, "We're not a play away." Like, we're a good team. We're a lot better than what the film suggests, what our record suggests, but we got to tighten shit up. We got to do what Cam says and lock the fuck in. So, to me, no, they're not close. And I don't think this coaching staff realizes it's not close. Like, we all know that the well, we're close thing is kind of utter bullshit, and really not what you really want to hear if you're a fan or in the media. But ultimately, I think that I'm kind of worried that the staff believes it, like, to an unhealthy degree believes it. Because remember when Brian Callen said there was nothing wrong with his play calling? Yeah, I just don't think they live in reality sometimes. I just don't think that. Look, I'm with Blaine, but where your expectations coming the season? Like, I mean, a 5-6 win team, but not a 0-4 team that looks like this. I at least thought they would be 1-4 at this point. 2-2, best case scenario. You're sitting pretty. But the way that they have gotten to the 0-4 is what I have an issue with. The way they are losing games is what I have an issue with. Let's see. Did I say Dan Granger, by the way? Because this is definitely Dan Gager. Jonathan Ashley says, I keep hearing how much people want this job, but from what I've seen, the front office won't let people do their job. Do you think this is why we got Brian, because of his passive personality? I think we got Brian as head coach because Super nice, super personable, super great resume on paper, like impeccable resume. And he's the polar opposite of Mike Vrabel. And I think when you're the polar opposite of Mike Vrabel, you're a super nice guy. You can throw, maybe feed to the local media the fancy words like offensive guru, modern offense, blah, 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 through all of that. When you're talking about that kind of stuff, that's all marketable buzzwords. And I feel there is a little bit more high level degree of marketability to Brian Callahan. Maybe that's why he was hired. Let's see. I guess most media assume since they're father and son that their schemes would be in sync. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I think you could see that, but I don't. I don't think that's the reality. But I could see why most media would think that. But if you watch the film, that's not the reality of it. And you're onto something, Ed. I think you're totally onto something. I think we didn't realize how bad they were last year. They beat Miami without Tua and scraped out an OT game versus New England. Only real win was Houston was a miracle. I think we all realized how bad they were. I just didn't think. I don't think we realized how much blame the staff actually shared as part of the blame pie last year, and I'll myself included in that. Yeah, Stephen Parker says Bill's specialty is the run game, and his son wants to uh, be a throw it over the yard type coach, and that's bad mix. And every time I see Stephen Parker comment, I swear his profile picture looks like Bill or Brian Callahan. Did you see anything more from Femi in this last game? From just watching the game, he seemed to be at least be more visible. I think that's a great way to put it. He was at least more visible. And people will choose like one play and say, "Man, look at this is the Femi. This is what they need to do." He's also got to learn to play the fucking position. Like we can't just be like, "Well, we just can only scheme this one way up, and this is how we're going to do it." He very rarely sets the edge correctly. In fact, more often than not, because when you set the edge as a defensive end, you are supposed to be the one moving, as being mean, not the one being moved. He's getting continually moved out of the play. Now, there are sometimes he sets the edge really good, but that's too and far between. There's sometimes he rushes the passer really well and all this stuff. But the Tennessee Titans are about to face the Arizona Cardinals, who do 13 personnel and 12 personnel. And if there's one thing that is Femi's kryptonite, it is tight ends. And so he's going to be in hell against these tight ends trying to get free because he has not been able to break free of a tight end except for one time in the plays I've charted. So, yeah, good luck. But maybe, just maybe, let's all hope and pray that I'm wrong. Any chance the next Titans coach will be a first-time head coach like Joe Barry? Do you truly think we need? Kosher, you may have just hopped in, but we had this conversation earlier, so you may have to rewind back. But to give you the TLDR, I do think this team really needs an established head coach. It doesn't have to be McCarthy, but it needs an established head coach. It needs someone to instill a culture and stuff. So I thought football was his kryptonite, says Logan Grady, referencing Femi. Yeah, that's probably his too. Do you think Amy got rid of Rabel so she didn't end up with a Jeff Fisher situation like her dad? Of course, there are other factors, but I wonder if it was the least thought. I don't know. I've been thinking about this too. Remember because I've been thinking about Brian Callahan getting hired and how marketable and personable he was. And you remember when Diana Rossini was at the Senior Bowl, and in 2 years, 2 Senior Bowls ago, I guess when they hired Brian Callahan, and there was the thing that Mike Vrabel was just too big. He was too intimidating because of his size. He's just a big old boy. She said it was other coaches or other execs. I don't know. I'm beginning to think that was probably people here, because I do listen. The act of firing Mike Vrabel is not the issue. That's not the problem. The act of Brian Callahan was the problem. Right choice or correct process, bad result, I guess you could say. The process of firing Mike Vrabel was smart. The result was that you hired the wrong guy, which is a bad process, bad result that you get my drift. Okay. See, no Stoney. We're a little bit early, I think. I'm trying to go through my notes here. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think we're good. Yeah, it's crazy to think most fans would kill for a 500 season. Of course, I guess you can't do 500 seasons anymore. But an 8-9 or 9-8 season, and for years and years we complained about that's how bad it is, right, Zeding? Like right now, it's so bad that you kind of wish for the days of Jeff Fisher just a little bit, just a little bit. Uh, yeah. Other than that, I think everything's out. I mean, the Titans have no direction. I thought the question by PK of hopelessness was good, but I don't think hopelessness is the right word because I do think inherently good football players always have hope that they can win the game or always think they can win the game. I mean, at least Cam Ward does. Um, but I think they're directionless. I don't think they have any direction. I think it's very clear because nobody can explain offensive identity enact the offensive identity. Nobody knows a philosophy, and nobody really knows what this culture is. There's no identity. I don't know if there's a real culture or coherent messaging or culture. Seems like a lot of conflict, a lot of conflicting actions versus words and words versus actions. So yeah, I think that listen, I think the front office is building the culture. And maybe it's because they don't trust Brian Callahan, and if they don't trust Brian Callahan, that's probably why they took away his play calling. That's probably why they installed Bo Hardegree. Logically, you would think all that stuff is true, right? I mean, Brian Callahan didn't think that his play calling was an issue, right? So who has control over the coaching staff? Well, that would be Mike Berganzi. So if he didn't think it was a play calling was the issue, then who's going to take play calling away? Well, that would be Mike Berganzi. Then if you're taking it away from him, are you really going to trust him to also then pick the right guy? No, because he probably would pick Nick Colts, his buddy. Is that what you guys would want? Because I would say that Mike Berganzi probably picked. I mean, just the messaging and dot connecting would be there. So if and then the Jarvis Brownlee Jr. trade, that was a purely front office decision. That was he may have been a dick here and there and feisty because he has that dog attitude. We know they don't like that dog attitude, but at the end of the day, he was still their best player. Denard Wilson wanted to keep him, wanted to play him, wanted him to get better, right? I mean, you want your coaches to get better, but they wanted to, they wanted to keep him, wanted to play him. So that was the front office. So the right now the front office is running the show. So that's why you want the front office to pick the coach and not the president of business operations, the owner, or anything like that. So, to me, I just kind of look at it and say, at the end of the day, the only way to find direction, the only way to find an identity is to get rid of the guy that's holding you back from doing both. Get rid of the guy that's holding you back from running the football, from helping your young quarterback, from being adaptable, from being accountable. I mean, from let let him fly. He's a peacock, like Mark Wahlberg would say. Like, gotta let him fly. And I just don't think this is gonna work. And if listen, let's be very cautious if they eke out a win somehow on this road trip and I go overboard and say that they're back. Unless Cam Ward throws for like 300 yards and 5 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, something crazy like that. Because they need to show consistency. This team has never been consistent since 2021. Like it's been consistently inconsistent. So to me, I look at it and I say, we got to make sure that we don't let one win change your mind. Because what if that one win is Kyler Murray goes down with injury and they win 6-0? Well, that doesn't help anything. Your offensive sounds like it still has issues. You only won because Kyler Murray got injured in the first quarter. Like, we got to make sure that we don't let one win sway the direction. Now, if that one win and Cam Ward looks great, That's great. That's something to add on for Cam Ward's, resume as we go forward. And you want to see Cam Ward look good. But if Cam Ward looks great and they win, it shouldn't change our mind about Brian Callahan, where this team is headed. Don't buy in. It's like last year. I'd seen so much of Will Levis. I was like, okay, I'm out. He's going to have to show me 5 or 6 consistent games of play. And Brian Callahan is going to have to show me 5 or 6 consistently competent, competitive games. I just don't think it's going to happen. Let's be honest. It's not going to happen. It doesn't have to result in wins. It just has to be consistent and competitive. That's what it's got to be. Like, and it's got to be a coherent game plan. They haven't had a coherent game plan forever. All right. Let's see. Yeah, Pete Prisco's a loser. Other than that, okay. I don't think we have anything to talk about anymore. All right. Get well wishes to Stoney from everybody in the chat. This has been Football and Other F Words, and you have just been effed.